Welcome, everybody. So, first, I want to say that I've sort of misled you with the description, because I'm not going to be answering all of these questions. The thing is, 17 years, squeezing that in 20 minutes is a little bit tricky. So, I was thinking about how to approach this, and I'm going to tell a couple of stories. 3 stories to be exact, and they are going to be about 3 journeys that I made over the course of these 17 years, and there might be some lessons learned to go with them. So let's see. First of all, my name is Derk de Geus. I'm indeed co-founder of Paladin. Paladin is a Dutch game developer. We create games that make you smile. We are based in The Hague, and we create games like Good Job for Nintendo, Stormbound, which is also represented here with these fine people, with the crew, based in Gdansk actually these days, and but also Tamagotchi, Galaga, well, a whole bunch of other games. So we work with clients like Lego, Nintendo, Apple Arcade, Netflix. So it's a work-for-hire studio. We're about 50 people in the Netherlands and 11 in Gdansk, or in Poland, not all in Gdansk, of course. And that means that, yeah, I've seen some shit. So let's put it that way. With that in mind, it's story time. So let's gather around the campfire and make yourself nice and comfortable. The first story I want to tell is 2009 in Iceland. We had a very, very tough time in the beginning of Paladin. We were basically scrambling for survival for about 7 years, and for the first 7 years. And in 2009, this came to a peak. We were doing a project for the European Commission, or with subsidy from the European Commission, and it was an educational game. Now, these projects were very long, very tedious, but one of the problems was that the payment is also very slow. And as you can imagine, if you are a small game development studio, payments and cash flow is pretty important. And I was standing at the side of this lake. I actually looked up the actual picture that I took from this moment. So this is from my holiday in Iceland. And I got the call from my co-founder, Dylan. And what he said was my worst fear, that the negotiations that we've been doing with our consortium partners to, get the payment a little bit earlier, they were rejected. The proposals that we made were rejected. So that meant that we had to wait another 9 months to get the money. It was a lot of money. We didn't have 9 months. We had about 1 month or 2 months. So what are you going to do? Well, at that point, my worst fear basically almost became reality. My worst fear was going bankrupt. And as you can imagine, this was a very stressful time. In the end, it worked out okay. We basically had to lay off part of the team, actually half of the team. We were a small team back then. I think we were 9 people, and we went back to 4. But it was a very painful process. However, this was one of the critical moments in the studio's history. I'll tell you why. The thing is that because of all of the stress that we were in, we were having a lot of discussions about where to go next. And this event, like the payment not being there, basically forced us to make a very tough choice. And my co-founder wanted to go down to the 2 of us, just as almost like freelancers. No employees, no nothing. He was tired of having to worry about if we could pay the wages next month, and he was just done with being stuck in this lifestyle, I guess you can call it, where we were not able to pay ourselves any decent salaries and all of that. I, on the other hand, wanted to be a pirate captain. I wanted to build the studio. And my proposal was, hey, we should just scale down, but then we should try to scale back up again and try again. And this is a fundamental question, and it's a big difference in how you run your game studio. So ask yourself, are you a lone cowboy, cowgirl, or a pirate captain? There's no right or wrong answer, but it will determine everything else. If you are a lone cowboy, you don't want employees, you don't want anything, you don't want to have any big studios or a studio or whatever in terms of the running costs. You just want to be as small as possible, and you want to sit on your horse and drive into the sunset and go on adventures. This is the indie lifestyle if you're a solo developer or if you or a creative professional. Pirate captain, you need a ship, you need a crew, you probably need funding. This is a completely different setup. So it will also change your role. When you're a cowboy, you can basically do whatever you want. You have to do everything that's necessary to keep the company afloat, but it's all there. If you're a captain, suddenly there's a crew, you need to manage the crew, it's a different thing. So make that choice. One thing I want to give you, you don't want to be a cowboy on a ship, and you also don't want to be a captain on a horse. So think about it. And the second one is that I was forced to make peace with the worst case scenario. And the bankruptcy, looking it in the eye, was a tough one. We were, of course, from the very beginning, we were afraid of this because we were struggling for survival. Bankruptcy seemed like a very big deal. Of course it is. But looking this in the eye, sitting down, thinking about how can I move through it? What would happen? How do I deal with it? Is this something that I have the capacity to do? It made me realize that, hey, I can take steps to work through something like that. It's going to be okay. Afterwards, I will come out and I could get a job at Starbucks, right? I'm not going to have to leave my house because we were living very cheap in a rental apartment, very small apartment. We would be fine. And actually, I also kind of like that idea because then I wouldn't have all these worries and all of the stress, and I could just, I don't know, be a starving artist or a ramen-eating indie, you know? And that sort of made it all okay. So I made peace with that scenario. And from that point on, as I made peace with it, I could clear my head and actually start working towards improving the situation. So that's what I did. All right, story 2. 2018, we go forward a couple of years, almost 10 years, and we go to Japan. This was a very interesting situation. What happened was that I ended up, through serendipity or the universe pushing me, I don't know, I ended up at a retreat. And in this retreat, I was, really going back to basics. It was called Back to Zero, and it was basically, designed to take out all of the layers that you have of your ego and all of that. And I came out of that feeling very zen and relaxed. And it was like, this is the real me, and this is really good. When I came back to the office, I was basically jumping into the fire again, and everything was on fire. My then COO had a lot of problems that he wanted to discuss with me, and this was on fire, this was a problem, there was this wrong, things were shaky. And the contrast between being completely zen and then ending up in that situation where I was like completely closing down, tensing again, stressed again, it was so big that I realized I do not want to do this. So I ended up deciding that I needed to get out. In hindsight, the question is this a wise decision? And we'll get to the lessons in a moment, but that's what I decided in the moment. And what I did, I hired a CEO. I fired myself as the CEO. Good riddance. And I basically said, okay, you do it. I'm going to take a nice sabbatical. I'm going to take a break. And actually, I might never even come back. So that was the plan. So we did that, and what actually happened was that I created space between myself and the company, and I took the time to relax, recover, actually do some creative work, and I really appreciated that, but also I did spiritual work. So I went to retreats, and I started the daily meditation practice, all of these things. And all of this combined basically gave me the headspace and the clarity to not be overly involved in the day-to-day of the company. This was critical. And we'll get to the next one after. In the end, the CEO left, but for now, let's leave it at this for this story. And I will give you some of the considerations. The first consideration is, are you a creative person or a manager person? And the difference might be a little blurry for some people. I know I'm a creative guy. I'm also manager type guy a little bit, but mostly I'm a creative guy. For others, it's the other way around. This is very important. As a creative, more than anything, what I needed was a strong manager next to me who could take care of all of the day-to-day. And I didn't see that. I didn't realize it. And the next lesson is tying into that. As we grew, we were growing at that point from, I think we were maybe 35, and then we grew to 55. As we grew, the problems that were caused by not having a proper management team were stacking up, and they were getting worse and worse. And this was why my COO at the time was struggling so much. And honestly, I mean, I'd have to talk to him to get his opinion, but my humble take on it is that he was also the wrong person for the job, because he's also a creative person. He's also not a manager. He's not super organized. He's more creative, and yeah, that it's just a different type of brain. So the more you grow, the more you need this organization, the more you need to hone up your delegation skills, and you need to let go of a lot of the things that are going on in the company. Today, I am in a very good position related to this. I am hardly running any day-to-day operations at all. And there's a lot of really good people that are picking those things up. Good managers, good team, and that's exactly where it needs to be. This is all super obvious, but for me at the time, it was like I was really struggling. So I'm just giving this as maybe take a look in the mirror. Where are you today? And the last bit that I want to share here is that the company needs you. So don't try to be somebody you're not. If you're a creative person, then do that. Double down on it. If you're a manager, or if you have specific skills, maybe on the business side or business development, analytics, whatever it is, the company needs you. It needs your specific skill set, your talents, your energy to thrive. So don't forget that. Know yourself. How are we doing on time? We're good? Okay. Okay. Great. Perfect. Story number 3 takes us to Colombia. So Iceland, Japan, Colombia, you see the trend, right? Every time I go away, far away, then something interesting happens. And the story here actually starts before I was going to Colombia, because 3 weeks before that trip, my CEO that I so cleverly appointed said, hey man, I'm gonna quit. So he left. And that left me in a very tedious situation, because at that point, I didn't really want to be the CEO anymore. I had a very nice life, and I basically said, okay, well, this is something that I don't want to do. Jumping in and sitting in the saddle again, not for me. But he left. So what are you going to do? Well, fortunately, I had this trip scheduled, and I spent 10 days on a shamanic retreat in the forests of Colombia to figure out what's next. And that was really interesting. So I think if you look at these three situations or events, then the first one is like I was just going on a holiday and I just had bad news, right? The second one was already more intentional. I took a step back out of the fray of the business, and then I made a conscious decision to take a step back. This one, I think, was sort of the redemption arc, is that I decided to go back into the CEO role, but this time I would do it my way and do it in a right way. And one of the things that I learned in that in those sessions in the retreat was that I was sort of not living according to my own values and my own mission in life. And working with these shamans and everything, I realized that, hey, I'm all about play. So let's play, right? Let's do that. Let's bring playfulness into the world. And the second realization was that games actually have a very big impact on the world. And they can have a positive impact on the world. And this is something that I always felt a little bit bad about, because why are we doing this, right? Games, it's just entertainment. It doesn't have the best reputation if you talk to non-gaming people. So sometimes that's tough. But I realized that, hey, games can actually have a positive impact. And I could clearly see that, for example, when we created Good Job for Nintendo, that my kids, my son and daughter, they were having a blast. They were laughing out loud, playing this game, sitting on the couch next to each other, just having a really good time. So it brought them together. So these are a couple of things that I learned. We can talk more after the presentation if you want to learn more about that. But so one thing I want to say as a lesson is that it's important to connect to your source. What is your muse? What is your inspiration? What is your source of creativity? Why do you get out of bed? This is incredibly important. And if you lose it, if you lose that, then it's hard to recover. So be very careful with it if you have it. And the second is to find your purpose. And those two are closely related. Finding your purpose sometimes means to think bigger than just the company or even your personal ambitions and goals. Think bigger than that. What do you want to bring to the world? What would make the world a better place in your opinion? Finding this will allow you to align your highest mission with the company mission, and then also to your daily objectives and projects and all of that. So if you have everything in alignment, suddenly it becomes a lot easier to work on these things. And especially if you then have the team working towards the same goals or similar goals, that's when the real magic starts to happen. So I just wanted to share this. This is actually not something we put on the website, not yet at least, but it's internal. It's for our team to know, like, this is the mission for Paladin. So we create wholesome games that have a positive impact on people. And I gotta say, I've been struggling to find this mission for probably 5 years. My initial goal with Paladin was to create a cool development studio, about 30 people. That was the vision that I had for myself and for the studio. And then when we achieved that, I was lost. I just couldn't find the next one. So we took a trip to Colombia to figure that one out. So yeah, I think that's it. I think we're spot on in terms of time, and we have some time for questions.
Yeah, thank you very much. Now, there's time for questions. I see already one hand up.
Thank you, Derek. I really enjoyed the talk. I have a question about, sorry, you probably talked about it, but I missed the very first part of your talk.
Yeah.
So obviously at Paladin Studios, you enjoyed incredible early success. Do you think your thoughts will be very different if you didn't have that early access? Would you have kept trying for 17 years?
I'm not sure I understand the question. So could you rephrase it? Because I don't know what you mean.
I guess
is your question, if we wouldn't have had this success, would our source be different, or what is?
I guess it's more abstract question, but
No, it's okay.
yeah,
That's okay.
It's all right. I guess a lot of indie game makers. I would say maybe 95% of indie game makers really struggle to survive, to have their first success. I guess if I want to phrase this question specifically, is what's advice you would give to the struggling indie developers? Is the best course to keep trying and trying until you have this big success, or would you be better to actually work for a studio that is already sustainable?
This is something you really have to decide for yourself. It depends. That's the answer. The only thing that I do want to give you is that thinking about your mission in life and setting a higher goal than what you currently may be working on, which is survival perhaps, will always benefit you. So the struggle that we had for the first 7, 8, 9, maybe 10 years, maybe more than that actually. Honestly, I mean, we're still in the indie studio, we're still struggling, right? I mean, we're successful, but it's still stuff is on fire, right? We still have to work with it. So we have our day-to-day challenges. But having that bigger mission, the dot on the horizon, gives so much peace and alignment in the team that it makes everything else a lot easier. Even if we don't achieve that goal, even if that's not something we're currently working on, maybe we're just putting out the fires, maybe we're just working to pay the next month salaries or the rent, that's all good. But we know why we are doing this, and it's to get there. And that knowledge, really setting those goals and setting those and being clear on your mission, I really want to invite you to try and think about it and get clarity on it, and you'll see what happens. Yeah, it's not like the success comes first and then you create the mission. It doesn't work like that, even though it might look like that. You create the mission, you get clarity, then the success will come.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any further questions? I can see any hand. Okay, another one.
Great.
If there's no other questions, I can ask another one. You seem not believing that a creative person can be a good manager at the same time. Why is that, and what qualities do you look for from a good manager?
A creative person can definitely be a good manager. Don't get me wrong. However, as a creative person, if you stop creating, it will slowly eat your soul. So you need to feed yourself with the creative energy to really feel alive and happy. So, and an unhappy manager is not a great manager. So that's why I say it. But you can still be creative in hobbies and do other things, right? So it's possible. And there's also something like creative direction, which is not a manager, but it's a leader. So there's also a difference there. So I'm just speaking from my own experience. If you want to make music and beautiful things in the world or whatever, and all you do every day is look at Excel sheets and sit in meetings, you're not going to be happy.
Okay, thank you. Any final questions? Okay, one more.
Thank you very much. I have a question about spiritual work actually you have done regarding your talk, because I know how deep one can go really there and align himself with the values, with the goal, and I actually understand that aligning everything with a single goal, it pushes through.
Yeah.
But sometimes going really deep into the spirituality actually may give a vision of so big goal that it's even difficult to describe the thing that we are trying to do. And maybe
Absolutely.
you have any ideas on this, how to approach this kind of things?
Well, this is where we are not angels, right? We are humans. So we are here, we're flesh and blood. We need to eat, we need to pay the rent, we need to raise our family. And that is the challenge. So the challenge of being human is to connect the divine essence that lives in all of us, connect that to right here, right now, boots on the floor, get shit done. So that is the spiritual path as far as I'm concerned. That's why I believe that spirituality and entrepreneurship go hand in hand. They reinforce each other if done right.
Okay. Thank you very much. We do not have time for more questions, but I guess you can find Derk on the corridors and
I'll
ask
be here.
him.
Yeah.
Yes. So thank you very much once again. Big round of applause, please.
Thank you.